on universities across this country, they're making speakers use megaphones so that we can't get our word out to the tens of thousands of people who really want change in this country and want to challenge the corrupt leadership that is holding us back. The United States Supreme Court has said that if you have the right to speak, you have the right to use the means to communicate your voice to all those who want to hear it. And I would challenge this university to make a microphone available to any candidate that is contesting the presidential race. So, operating with our impaired technology, we will let the power of the message supplement the lack of power of the microphone. And the power of this message is very simple. I'm running against a corrupt status quo bought and paid for that no longer serves your interests. I stand here proudly with Cesar Chavez, who represents the most exploited, underpaid workers who make it possible for us to eat every day. And just because they speak Spanish for the most part, doesn't mean the United States government shouldn't listen to their basic needs for decent wages, for health care, for a union of their... This election is not about smiling, about being picked by the national media, by being approved of by your local politicians, many of whom have been ripping you off for years, and you know it. Yeah. And you know it because the savings and loan scandal didn't start in Texas because the politicians were protecting your interest. They were paid off by the savings and loan, and that's why you're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars for the rest of your lifetime cleaning up after the mess that we have to put an end to right now. This campaign is real simple. You've got Tsongas, and you've got Clinton, and you have myself. We're here to give you a choice. I'm only taking no more than $100 from any American citizen because I want this campaign to be owned by you. I want this campaign to be controlled by the people. Now I want to tell you a few things because some of you may have heard a few stories about me. You may not know what I did as governor. I was governor for 8 years. I came in after Reagan. And when I was sworn in as governor of California, California was the third highest tax state. 8 years later, we dropped to 24th. Never has anybody running for president had such a decrease in the taxes of his state. And I want people to understand that you got a real choice. Somebody cares about you. Cut your taxes. Paul Tsongas wants to increase the gasoline tax 50 cents. And Clinton's going to tell you that on all his paid ads. Clinton himself raised taxes 10 or 15 times. I haven't. And I have fought just for ordinary people. When I was elected, Nancy Reagan had built this beautiful $1 million mansion. I didn't live in it. People think, well, that's kind of strange. But I'll tell you what I did do. I put in a policeman and his wife. We saved $500,000 a year. I took out an apartment, paid my own rent, wouldn't let him increase my salary, got rid of Reagan's private jet, sold the bulletproof limousine, and tried to be a public servant. All right, during those 8 years, what do? We gave collective bargaining rights to farm workers, the only state in the country that ever did that. We established the Civilian Conservation Corps so that young people could find jobs, protecting the environment, clearing streams, helping people in times of floods and emergencies. That's already a law. I was going to say this president. Our Civilian Conservation Corps, through which 50,000 young men and women have gone, is the model for what I want to do as president. This is not an idea. We have the model. We've done it. See, Clinton talks about it, but in 11 years, he's never created the National Service Corps in Arkansas that he talks about. We did. And increasingly, you're going to see the choice between the rhetoric and the reality. The action. Now, in terms of, I want to mention something about appointments. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, we appointed a lot of women and Hispanics and African Americans. So I'll just tell you this. There has never been so many women and minorities appointed to top state positions as during my 8 years in California. Never. I appoint a woman as Chief Justice. I appoint a woman to head up the tax department, the finance department, the health department, the men's prisons, the highway department, the food, just the veterans department, department after department, we entrusted to the diversity of people that make up our state. And that's what I believe the federal government ought to do. Okay, look, the other thing we did, and I want you to know about it in terms of energy, I stopped nuclear power in California. Paul Songus is the director of a nuclear power utility. He's a paid lobbyist for corporations and a managing director of the Boston Edison Company. So there's a distinction, a real choice. Now, because we stopped nuclear power, we could pioneer energy efficiency, solar, wind turbines, biomass, geothermal, and all the rest. And as a result, California became the window on the future of the world. We're the world, not national, world leader in alternative energy. 4 million people. Enough electricity is generated from those 4 sources, wind, solar, biomass, and wind turbines to supply 4 million people. We can do it in Texas. We can do it in America. We can save this planet from becoming a stinking junkyard.
Yes.
And we just make the decision.
Yes.
Now, so after 8 years of, I believe, a very creative period, I left the governor's office. I took a period in the private sector. I started a magazine. I lived in Mexico City for several months. I studied in Japan, traveled to Central America, Russia, China. I met activists. I went to Calcutta, India. I worked there at the Home for the Dying and the Destitute with Mother Teresa. And I came back determined to change politics, to build a grassroots organization. I became the chairman of the Democratic Party in California. And I served in that volunteer position for 2 years of a 4-year term. And then I quit. And I quit because I realized that trying to get money out of savings and loan executives and the top 1% to hire students and Hispanics and blacks and people who think they're getting ripped off to be enrolled in the party, when you're paying for that enrollment process by the very people that are ripping us off, is doomed to failure. And that we have to start a party that builds power from the bottom up, not from the top down. That's why I call this an insurgent movement. And I went into Colorado, and all the major political players, all the politicians, the big money, was behind Bill Clinton. They're for him because they know they control him. They know he's one of the boys. He's a good old boy. He's not going to change anything. And despite that, people went into the polls and they voted, and we won. And we won. And we won for a very simple reason. You see, I want you to understand something about this whole electability business. In Colorado, so many new people and independents went out to vote that they ran out of ballots in the afternoon. That was the turnout. In Georgia, where Bill Clinton won, 2/3 of the people stayed home because they didn't feel there was any choice there. I mean, who cared? So they didn't vote. And I'm telling you, the only way to take back this country is to offer the American people an honest choice, something different. If you want George Bush, fine, vote for him, but don't create a Democrat in the same image and likeness that offers essentially nothing different. My campaign. So don't believe people when they say the incumbents are all for Clinton and some of them for Tsongas. I mean, yeah, I am challenging those people. And I challenge them on some basic, simple ideas. The people in Congress voted themselves a pay raise when they're making $90,000 a year. They felt poor. One of the reasons they felt poor is they hang out with multimillionaires who pay for the campaigns. That's why they feel poor. So they got to collect these honoraria. That's a legalized bribe. And they could collect $30,000 every year from, the tobacco companies, liquor companies, banks, savings and whatever. So that looked bad. So the people in Congress, the Senate particularly, said, we got to change this. We will eliminate the $30,000 honoraria that we're getting on top of our $89,000 salary, our full medical program, our bouncing checks, our pension. And we'll eliminate the $30,000 and we'll increase our pay. We'll increase our pay to $129,500 to ease the shock. And they did. And they did despite the growing deficit, despite the lack of commitment to education, to health care, to jobs, to protecting this environment. And so what I say, Bill Clinton, you take all those endorsements. You see, I want the endorsements of people who want the Congress when they stay up in the middle of the night and they suspend the rules and they really get something done, not just for their own pay raise, but for child care and national health care and an environmental protection plan. See, that's what we ought to have. They can do it. They can do it. And by the way, I made the point about the party in politics being so dominated by the $1,000 donors. That's the fuel. That's the obsession. In California, to run statewide, you need $20 million. You got to hang out with the people that can give you that kind of money. It's like when they ask Willie Sutton, how come you rob banks? He'd always say, hey, that's where the money is. And you ask a politician, how come you spend all your time with all these political action committee directors and all these people, all these rich people? And they say, hey, that's how you get your $20 million to run for office. And by the way, let's just experiment and find out who's here. I want to know how many people in this audience have never, in their entire life, ever written a personal check of $1,000 to an American politician. I'd like to raise those hands. Well, you know what side of the line you're on. And we have to take back power from those other people and make this government serve us. Texas, I want the people of Texas to decide which side of the line they want to be on. They want to be on the line of those who give $1,000 and rip us off and lie to us and betray the principles of this country, or do they want to stand together with the vast majority, the 90% of hardworking people who aren't getting what they deserve from our government? I want you to join together and take it back. Take back this country.
Take it back! Take it back! Take it back! Take it back! Take it back!
Take it back. Take this country back for farm workers that are making $2, $3 an hour. Take it back for secretaries that are making $4 or $5 an hour. People working in insurance companies and banks and nurses' aides and teachers' assistants. And take it back for all of you who are going to find it very hard to get a job when you get out unless we get a government that starts taking care of America instead of everybody else 10,000 miles away. That's what we got to do.
Take it back! Take it back! Take it back! Take it back! Take it back!
You know, our Army Corps of Engineers last year put up 1,000 buildings in Kuwait. 1,000 buildings in Kuwait. I'd like to see some of that same energy go to work right here for people that don't have houses. People that need some assistance. And finally, I want to say something about foreign policy. I want a foreign policy that a lot of times people will, they ask me, well, what's your foreign policy? As if to say, hey, what country are you willing to invade? I want the top foreign policy in my administration to be committed to ending world hunger. Now. I want the second priority to be stopping and curbing to the maximum degree the obscene arms sales that are making this planet. Third, I want America to be on the record of protecting human rights everywhere from Haiti to Central America to Mexico. Let's protect people's human rights wherever they are. And finally, I want America to be the leader in protecting the global environment, our environment. I mean, this planet does not have to be wrecked and destroyed. We can protect the ozone layer and the rainforest, the water and the soil. I mean, don't poison the very water on which all life depends. Let's have a foreign policy that puts America in the leadership as stewards of the environment and the planet and our life itself. And finally, I want to just say this. People say, okay, you're attacking the incumbents, the status quo, the insiders in Washington. How are you ever going to get anything done? And what I say is this. It's not going to be me, and this campaign is not about me. It's about a coalition of people that care. It's about a coalition of people in women's groups, environmentalist groups, leaders of all those parts of America that have been neglected, that have been ripped off. And I'm standing here with Cesar Chavez because I believe that together we can make change. And I've said, as all the other candidates have not, that if I have a choice to make a vice president, I want the Reverend Jesse Jackson to make real change. This is not a campaign of getting along and going along. It's a campaign to confront a corrupt status quo that's out of touch and no longer serves the American people.
Never did.
The Cold War is over. The Cold War is over. We are on the verge of a renaissance. There's nothing we can't do in this country. We can protect our environment. We can create the energy we need. We can build fuel-efficient cars. We can expand our space program. We can educate every one of our students. It's just a matter of joining together with those who care and making this country live up to the ideals, the founding principles that made America what it is. That's our campaign. Please join with us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Really, the first time I've really heard a politician, say what I believe.
He's the only real candidate who can really turn our country around.
I actually felt something like that. Something could possibly be done to change the way the government works.
Great.
So that's why it was moving for me.
What are you standing in line here for?
I was going to write a check to the campaign.
And I think I finally found a candidate I can vote for instead of against somebody else.
We the people